Good morning, crafty friends. Welcome back. Today is Distressed Oxides, Color Combos, and Cards, and number 3. And we're playing with these beautiful jewel tones today and the Altenew BOTANICALS stamp set. And I'm starting off with Peacock Feathers and Salty Ocean Seedless Preserves are my 3 colors in that order. And from right to left, I'm using the Ranger mini blending tools. Love those. Brushes also work very well. I find I get a deeper ink penetration using the blending tools because I can push a little bit harder. So you see I'm blending the two together, and then I'm moving the paper over to the left so that I don't pick up that blue when I go into my seedless, and I go back and forth on that piece of paper for that reason. Your blending tool will pick up the wet ink that is on the scratch paper underneath. And so the Seedless Preserve starts a little bit on the bright side, and the first time I gave up and tried something else, and then I went back and tried it again. When you start pulling the blue down into the preserves, it creates that stunning deep purple. So I carried on with it and was very happy using it in the end. So don't give up on it, I guess is my lesson there for you. Okay, so I am just going back over and blending in my edges again, trying to get it perfect. I'm using a Kleenex because I have very, very warm hands, and I leave fingerprints all over this until it's dry, which I'm now doing with my heat tool. So here's the beautiful stamp set we're going to be using. This is new from Altenew, and it has 2 solid leaf images and then coordinating dot outlines, and they're just absolutely fabulous. I have been dying to use these, and there's also dies, but I'm not going to be using them today. Before we start stamping and embossing, we want to make sure the ink is really dry, so I do a little test. I rub it with my anti-static, and then I'm going to pour some in embossing powder over it and see if anything sticks. The Distressed Oxide ink does take a little bit to dry, so leave it overnight or use your heat tool and make sure it's good and dry, and try both ends because we're going to be embossing on both ends. And success, nothing stuck. We could move on. I'm using my Misty extensively for this, and I've got the solid leaf image in there. I close the lid to pick it up, and I'm going to use VersaFine Clair, and this is Nocturne. This is a beautiful, really, really juicy black ink, and usually only needs 1 stamping to get a solid image. I can't recommend this ink enough. It is just awesome. And give it a good rub in your Misty so you get a nice even distribution of the ink. Gently pull it back and look at that. Once again, you're going to have to heat set this, and it does take quite a while to dry. So make sure and do the test to make sure that it's dry. I actually had to do the test twice. That ink is super, super juicy. And we like it that way, but we've got to make sure it's dry for the next step or it's going to mess it up. So back into the Misty again. I'm removing the solid image, and I'm going to lay down the dots. I want it shorter and to the left of my original image. And I'm moving my magnets in so that I ensure that my paper doesn't move. I'm using Versamark this time because we're going to be heat embossing. So anti-static again to get rid of my sticky fingerprints. Ink up that stamp really well, and then give it a really good rub so you get nice coverage, and then pick it up. We're going to cover it with a gold embossing powder and shake off the excess and heat set it, and watch the heat as it heat sets. This is such a pretty design, and it adds such nice detail. Isn't that awesome? I just love it. Okay, so we're finished with that, and I'm going to show it to you up close as soon as I can get my camera to focus. There we go. I have flipped my Misty around to compensate for the overhang of the stamps, and again I'm doing that, and this time I'm going to pop it into the top left corner because I'm going to stamp on the right hand side of my card front. So placing that up in there, making sure that I use my anti-static, and I'm going to change again to my dots. And I'm going to angle it down the right hand side this time. I thought about going tip on tip like that, no, but I decided I liked it there better. So just a little bit of placement, moving my magnet so I get nice and close to hold it sturdy, and make sure it's really wedged into that left side in case you have to restamp. So again, closing to secure the stamp, adding a whole bunch of Versamark ink, and we're going to close it, give it a good rub, open it up, cover it again with the gold embossing powder, and then shake off the excess and heat set it. And this just turns out so fabulous, and I just love these colors behind it. The jewel tones just really make this stamp set pop. And here we go. Here comes the bright, pretty colors. I know you've been going on a bit in the last couple of videos about these A2 thin frame dies from Simon Says Stamps. Here's another reason why. You can audition which part you want to cut off and use in your card. And I've decided I want to go all the way to the left and do it there. And the other part is I could just chop this up, but it's, you know, hard to measure it. You also get a nice finish from the die on the edge of your cut piece. So I'm also going to score and fold my card base. Nina, 110 pound. I like my card bases nice and thick. And I use my Score Buddy to make sure that I fold it nicely and it's nice and square. And then I'm just peeling off that purple tape. That stuff's awesome, but you got to be careful about peeling it off so that you don't take the top layer of your art piece with it. And I'm going to be placing it right there. But hey, I got that piece left over there on the left-hand side. I'm going to pop it into my cutter, and I'm going to trim it down so that it's nice and even. And this piece started at 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I wanted a little bit shorter, so I'm going to go 5 1/4. And I'm going to put this on the inside right of my card. I thought it would be a nice addition, and I hate to waste a nice piece of artwork. So adding a little bit of tape to the back of it. And that's my Tombow adhesive, and pop it down there. And so when you open the card, the design on the right hand side is going to continue on the inside of the card. So again, more adhesive on my art piece that I'm going to pop onto my card front. And I like to use my grid paper. You'll see that I straighten the card out here and use the grid paper with my eyeballs to get that on there straight. Because sometimes I put these on really wonky. So I find if I have straight lines to follow, it's a lot easier to do. Okay, so give that a good rub, and then look at that. Peekaboo on the inside. Yeah, and we didn't waste that pretty piece of paper. So I white heat embossed the sentiment onto a scrap of black cardstock, and I'm just going to use 4 glue dots, and I'm going to attach this to the top left-hand corner of the card because I don't want to cover up any of that pretty artwork that we just did. And doesn't that make a fabulous card without any work? This stamp set is just amazing. So you'll see that I finished 2 cards, and the one on the right, I added an extra little bit of the black stamping and a little bit more of the gold. I pushed it in a little bit more so more of it showed, and I also flipped the background. So I've got the preserves at the top of the card. This is actually upside down at the moment, but I wanted to show you where I stamped and embossed. So I decided to flip it just to give you kind of a different idea of what you could do with this and the stamp set. I think they're both pretty. The one on the right, I did the sentiment in gold, which I thought was a bit different. Anyway, the links to everything I used are under this video, and if you enjoyed it, please consider giving me a thumbs up. I would appreciate that. And until next time, toodles!